Camille, my name is Mike Dekema.
Oh, nice to meet you, Mike.
And today's date, where's November 6th?
The 6th.
2013. Tell me your full name.
The one I go by, that's probably better.
Okay.
Or rather, Camille Borroum Mitchell is my full name. But I just go by Camille Borroum Mitchell.
And obviously we're in Corinth, Mississippi.
Yes, that's correct.
Did I say it properly?
Yes, you did.
Gathering information about the town and the people that live here and the families of the people who live here. And you are one of the most prominent families in the town.
Well, we helped the town grow.
That's what I understand. And also one of, if not the oldest business in town.
It's the oldest building. It's the oldest business in town as far as I know. It's the oldest drugstore in the state of Mississippi. And according to the young pharmacy students that came down from Boston, they say that we're the oldest drugstore in the United States still operated by the same family. I have not researched that.
Tell me about the family. When did the family come to northern Mississippi?
Oh, when did it come to northern Mississippi? Well, when we first came to this country, we came in was Amsterdam, New Amsterdam, which
Okay.
later became New York.
Mm-hmm.
And then they did just like everybody else, came down the coastal line. When our particular family came to this area was in 1843. They left South Carolina going to Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And my great-grandmother discovered that she was expecting a new baby, so they waited to go in the spring. And you know how they did, they divided the caravans up into smaller groups. And they were attacked by a warring band of Indians as they crossed Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And she was partially scalped, and the majority of the people were killed. And the tribe of Indians from South Mississippi, where Oxford is today, Ole Miss, they passed by and picked them up and took them back to their camping grounds. And they put Miss Borroum's scalp back on using yellow root and prickly M. Yellow root, you know it today as fibromycin, tetracycline. It wasn't until around 1950 that we got to using tetracyclines
My
for
goodness.
infection.
Okay.
And so they stayed in Oxford. And then after the war was over, the Civil War was over with, Dr. Borroum was going back to his home in Oxford. And he ran into Dr. Young, who had been in a battle with him in New Orleans. They were served in the medical field. And so he talked him into coming back to Corinth instead of opening up his practice in Oxford. He said that Corinth was going to grow a lot more because of the railroads. And so it really did prosper. It did very well.
Okay.
And so that is how our particular family got here.
And when did they go into the pharmacy business?
Well, he went into the pharmacy business almost immediately because Corinth was under military rule.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the reason Dr. Young was so interested in him staying, because he had studied under other pharmacists and he was able to make drugs as well as dispense them.
Okay.
So the drugstore was first wholesale retail.
Mm-hmm.
So they made the drugs up above the drugstore that you saw today, and doctor's offices were downstairs.
Was that the same location? that it
Same
is today?
location.
And about what year was that?
You know, it would have to have been 1863.
Okay.
1863 to 1864, that terminology, that area there. I had always heard that it had another location on Cruz Street, and he did own some buildings over there on Cruz Street, but we don't believe the drugstore was ever there,
Okay.
and we don't have any records that say that it was.
All right.
And so anyway, and they built the first courthouse was a frame building, and then the second courthouse was a red brick building. And I assume it's when they built that second one that he decided to put the doctor's offices upstairs and move the drugstore downstairs. Better for business.
More retail.
Yeah, more retail.
Okay.
And the statue out here used to sit in the middle of the street. The story is that Mr. Rubel had a clothing store. He had a magnificent building. And they said that Ms. Rubel got a car, and then she kept hitting the statue, so they just moved the statue. I think it's true.
So,
And we've had lots of things happen in town. We had Roscoe Turner, who won the aviation award, aviation award, and he was also in the Aviation Hall of Fame. He supposedly drove a T-model Ford up the courthouse steps one day on a dare. So the courthouse had a lot of history.
true. What was then the family process? This was your grandfather that started?
My great-grandfather.
Great-grandfather. And then it stayed, obviously, within the family.
It's been in the family ever since.
Present day. So your grandfather, what did he do then?
Well, now, my grandfather was a doctor,
Okay.
and he operated the store and had his office upstairs.
And had a medical practice
Yes.
here. Okay.
And he had his brother Theodore.
All right.
Now, Theodore studied at Johns Hopkins.
Okay.
And my grandfather always said he was a little smarter than he was. He went to UT, or University of Tennessee,
Okay.
and but Theodore, and so they had their practice here.
A thriving business back in the day.
Well, I imagine it was. I really do.
Okay.
We have a fee table over there of what the doctors charged in 1915. It's kind of interesting. An office visit and a prescription was $1. And we probably filled a prescription for 25 cents.
Did the family have other business interests, or was it all?
They had real estate.
Okay.
And as far as I know, not any of them were ever involved in farming in this area. I feel sure as they came down the coastal line they were.
Okay. And then your father?
My father, he was a pharmacist. Now he had got a pharmacy degree when you didn't have to go to college to get it. You know, you studied under somebody. And so, incidentally, a lady from Pickwick bought a tube. It looks about like you put on a map, put maps in rather. And she got it for 50 cents at a cartel, at a tag sale. And so she went back to Pickwick and finally got the can opened, or the tube opened. And it had my great-grandfather's diploma when he graduated from the University of Louisiana Medical School.
Wow.
He had his marriage license when he was married in Athens, Alabama. And it also had his license giving him the authority to practice medicine in Tennessee. Now, where it had been all these years, I have no idea.
Rolled up in a tube.
Rolled up in a tube.
That's.
I thought that was amazing. She couldn't figure out what the name was because it was written in Old English script, you know, and the rest of it was written in Latin. We forget about that.
Back in the day.
I had a grandson that got married in Athens, Alabama, in September, and he was 154 years ago that his grandfather, it would be his great-great-great-grandfather got married in Athens. I thought that was kind of coincidental.
Sure.
Both of them married Alabama girls.
a definite tradition.
I thought it was kind of odd when you looked at it, you know, it seemed
Sure.
unusual.
What's your earliest recollection of the pharmacy?
My early recollection, well, I asked my grandfather for a job. I must have been about 10, probably 11. I always liked the drugstore. So he gave me a job of washing dishes behind the soda fountain.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want that job, but I didn't complain. So later I got all of a nickel a week for working too, incidentally. Then I asked him one day if I could have a better job. And he says, well, what's wrong with the one you got? And I told him I thought I was a little smarter than that. So he gave me the job with the cash register.
All right.
And so I worked there several months, and I guess so. And then he came over one day and he says, I've got just the job for you. And I thought, oh, I'm just delighted. What is it? Went back to the pharmacy, and that's where I wanted to go. And I got to feel Dr. Stroups, who was a veterinarian here. Actually, he was probably the only veterinarian for several counties. Aloe powders for the cows. And it's a very volatile powder that gets up in your nose and your mouth. But that didn't bother me. I was getting to measure something and fold the powder papers. I just thought that was fantastic. About 6 months later, I discovered nobody else wanted that job. But anyway, it was interesting how you go. Dr. Stroop was quite a colorful veterinarian. And he was really quite renowned for the times. He went to South America when they had what they call the hoof and mouth disease, and they had an epidemic of that and cleared it up. So he did extremely well.
And did you live in one home growing up here? Did you move around a little bit?
The family home was up there where the Methodist Church is today, and it no longer exists. And I lived in that area, but I did not live in that house. I visited my great-grandmother over there, and of course we all ran around in there when we were children.
Okay.
But when she died, it went to the estate and eventually was sold.
Okay. Where did you live? Where did you live growing up?
Where did I live? Just on the other side, where still the Methodist Church is. They bought that house too.
The neighborhood. And what school did you go to?
I went to the University of Mississippi.
Well, what elementary school? Where did you go to school?
What elementary? I went to Corinth Elementary School.
Corinth Elementary. And
we only had two schools. We had Crew Street School, which had really had kindergarten through the 4th grade. And then we had the school on the hill, is what we called it, where the post office is today, the High Point.
Okay.
Well, that was for the 5th and 6th graders. And then where the post office actually sits today was 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
No, I have no brothers or sisters.
Okay. And off you went to Ole Miss to become a pharmacist?
Yes,
Okay.
I think that's kind of funny about that. My grandfather and my grandmother both told me just whatever you wanted to do, and you wanted to do it just because somebody else wasn't doing it, was no reason not to. And my grandfather added, if you had to hide your face, you were doing the wrong thing. And so when I went down to Ole Miss, it never occurred to me that they didn't have girls in pharmacy school, and I thought that was kind of odd, taking the time frame in consideration.
Sure.
That'd be 1944 when I went down there.
Were you the only woman
I
studying?
was the only one there for a while, and then Paul Hammond came in from Hammond, Louisiana.
Okay.
And then several others came after that.
So obviously you were pretty focused on my business from
Well,
the
I
beginning.
just liked it.
Okay.
I've always liked chemistry and math, and that worked in perfectly.
Okay. After graduation, did you come right back here?
Yeah, I came back here and practiced. I did. I got married shortly after that, and I worked for Walmart. I worked for chain stores in Boonville, not Boonville, excuse me, Iuka.
Okay.
And I worked in Tupelo for Howard's, later became Gibson's. And I always thought it was a good idea to know how the chains were working. And the best way to do that is work for them.
So entrepreneurial business development, basically. Yeah. And when, did you also work here at various times?
Yeah, sometime I did. Sometime I would work relief here and work, or vice versa, work here and have relief down there. We had another pharmacist here.
Okay. When did you begin really working here?
Permanently, 48. Well, really and truly, I guess I really began in 48. It was later after the chain started developing. I thought it would be a good idea to see how that was.
Okay.
So I worked for the chains part-time, not full-time.
Okay.
I just worked as a relief pharmacist.
And Borroum's was at its present location then?
Yes.
Okay.
It's never moved.
So tell me about its business development over the years.
In what manner?
Well, it has had relationships with large national chains, right?
Yes, I don't think I quite understand the question.
Was it always just doing business as Borroum's, or did it?
We've always, well now we were a Walgreen agency at one time,
Okay.
and we were a Rexall agency too, but they both went out of business. You know how the chains sometimes die out and then they come back 20 years later.
Okay.
And so the last thing that we were was Walgreen agency.
But
I believe.
Always at this location?
Always at that location.
Okay.
Incidentally, that used to be a saddlery. And the building next to us was a tin shop, and the building on the other side was a livery stable.
More rural than it is now. Okay. And how about downtown Corinth? It seems to be prospering now.
Well, it's prospering now. Corinth was a real busy town before World War II and during World War II. And then when urban renewal came in, it just destroyed the downtown. So they went more to the shopping areas or shopping malls, and it took all the businesses away. So it was very slim there for a while. I laughingly said it wasn't anybody but the lawyers and the jewelry store and us and the courthouse left downtown. But it's come back. We decided to go back into time, and we think that with what we think we are, we think we're the period of 50s and 60s. That was when everything was so good for the United States. The war was over. Everybody was working. Everything was made in the USA. It's hard for the people today to realize that. And the people sent their children to college without having to depend upon the government or somebody to help them, more independent.
So that was basically a business decision to sort of go retro.
That's right, it really was.
When did you do that?
Well, that was, it was in the 80s.
Okay.
When we had that, when I had that bright idea. I got amused at my youngest son. He's a contractor, and I asked him it would be a big job putting the old front back, because we had an ultra-modern front. And he says no, and he listened to my idea, and he says, you know what people are going to think, don't you? I says, yes, they're going to think I got bats in the belfry. And so we debated about moving out by the hospital, but I just couldn't seem to bring myself to do it. So.
And how's that worked for you?
It's worked beautifully for us. We've had a lot of luck. A lot of people helped us, and a lot of it came from most unusual places.
Like what?
Well, like for instance, I wrote a story for the Commercial Appeal about the drugstore, and I was getting ready to mail it off. There was 2 young pilots that came in that were going back to Memphis, and they noticed I had Commercial Appeal written on the envelope, and they asked me about it, and I told them. And they says, oh, can we read the article? And I says, well, sure, if you want to. And so they did, and they asked for a copy, and I gave them a copy and thought no more of it. About 7 or 8 months later, all of a sudden we had people here from Australia and New Zealand. And I thought, how in the world did anybody from Australia know about us in the first place? Well, come to find out, they had read about us in the magazine on the back of the plane. So I had rented a car from Memphis and come over. So you see how it was kind of luck.
Sure.
And then we did a favor for Channel 5 one time when they were covering, I believe it was a murder case over here, murder trial. And so they called us later on to know if they'd do a story on us. And of course that was another lucky break. That was advertising that we could not afford. And it just one thing led to another. Channel 9 came, On the Roads Again came, CNN came.
Wow.
And we were not used to all of that. It was very interesting and we enjoyed them. But we had a group here yesterday from Amsterdam.
Really?
And that seemed unusual. See, Borroum is Dutch, and they wanted to see the old Dutch drugstore. And it was real nice. It was really interesting. And I couldn't help but be amazed at the cameras he had. He had some very expensive cameras.
we operate in a different world.
Yeah, a really different world, we really do. But
we're Dutch too, so.
And something I think they forget about, another thing that happened that helped tremendously was Jimmy and Betty Hathcock thought up the idea of having a Slugburger Fest. That was after we put the old front back on the store. And of course the Slugburger back during the Depression was like 3 for a nickel. Impossible to believe. And the men called it a slug, like a slug you might put in a parking meter.
Right.
And so everybody in town thought that'd be a fantastic idea, so we had the Slugburger downtown. And of course that brought people back downtown. See, they had gotten used to going out, and they kind of forgot about us.
Mm-hmm.
And so ever since then, we've had several things that have really worked out well. The Slugburger Fest has worked out well, and then we have the Hog Wild and several other things, the Green Market. And then after we did our front, incidentally, well, then the Littles down the street did their buildings, put the old fronts back on. And we turned around, there was some more buildings doing it till most of the town, I believe, that can be restored has been restored.
Seems to be still a great deal going on.
They're still working on a law office up there on the corner. Now, he was fortunate enough to still have his original columns. The rest of us had to have them made.
Newer columns.
And all the columns were cast then in that time frame.
So, where did the slug burger come from?
Well, it was just a cheap way to make food, I guess you would say. The way I understood it was Miss Weeks, and I feel sure there was lots of other people, I just don't know their names. But she came up with this idea of mixing potato flour and a little bit of sausage and a little bit of ground beef, which were extenders, as we call them today. And she could sell them, so cheap. And they're good, and they're different. But I mean, not everybody likes a slug burger, but most people do. They're crisp, you deep fry them.
You deep fry the patty, I presume.
That's right. And the health department came in, though, and made us take he said you couldn't mix two meats. So it's soybean and beef, mostly.
Okay.
And it's, but anyway, it didn't seem to make any difference. I don't think any of us ever thought about two meats till they came. And they didn't think about it till the Slugburger Fest came up, I don't think.
We have heard people have very definite opinions
They
of
do.
what has to be on a slug burger.
That's
for
right.
it to be authentic.
And some people think you've got to have mustard, onion, and pickle. Some's got to have cheese, mustard, onion, and pickle. But they're good. And we have a lot of truck drivers that come through, and they'll eat lunch at the store, and then they'll get some to go on the road.
Did the store always have a lunch counter?
It's been there as far as I can remember since early 1900s.
Okay.
But it was much smaller than that one that's there today.
It seems food is a big part of the store.
Yes, it really is. Actually, we used the whole idea ordinarily in the past was to use the soda fountain to draw trade, which it does. And we didn't realize how well it was going to do till after we got into our renovation over there. And we didn't have it. We first bought that particular fountain from Swift.
Okay.
And when Howard Johnson pulled out the ice cream business, and Swift pulled out. Actually, it was motel business. Howard Johnson was in.
Sure.
And so we didn't have anybody to repair it. So of course we got in trouble with EPA because we had the wrong Freon. You know how that progressed. And,
Sure.
And we had a leak, and we couldn't find the leak. And, the refrigeration man here, Mr. Hensley, he was sick at the time, and he did us what he called a bypass. Strange looking apparatus, but it worked.
Okay.
We bypassed the leak, and that's all that mattered. Well, some young people came in from Connecticut, and they had read about us in some magazine, Southern Living or something, and they came in to see the store, and they kept looking at that odd little machine over there on the side. I started laughing, and I says, well, that's our heart bypass. And they couldn't, and I explained to them, what our problem was. He says, all you need is Mr. Schiffer from Chicago Fountain and Sales. Says he knows everything in this world it is to know about a soda fountain.
So I have to ask a question. Why are your milkshakes so good?
Because they're made with real milk and real ice cream. And they're not made with blenders, they're made with a regular milkshake.
I hadn't seen one of those in a long time.
Very long. Somebody said they really enjoyed it. This guy came in today, and he told his wife, he says, I don't think we need but one, we'll split it. But as it worked out, they got two, so he didn't want to split it. But they are good. They are. I think that's the main thing, is they're made with the natural syrups and ice cream and milk. If you're wanting to be on a diet, we're not the place to come.
I'll remember that.
And but we do have salads.
And your Coca-Cola is blended the old-fashioned way.
That's right. You hand make it. You really do, and they are different. They taste different.
Mm-hmm.
And some people say, "Oh, I like a bottled one better," and they are good. But then when they taste the fountain Coke, I notice they always come back and ask for it. And you can make Cokes. You make cherry Cokes, strawberry Cokes, vanilla Cokes,
Mm-hmm.
just whatever the people want. And you also have your ice cream sodas that are very good.
Any?
You can just make almost anything if you've got the syrups.
Sure. Are there any other old-timey things we have to try there that are as good as your milkshakes?
Well, the old-fashioned soda is real good. The banana splits are spectacular. You might need a partner on them. And I don't know how to stop it from ringing.
We'll stop. Don't worry.
Don't worry, okay. But anyway, it's determined to ring, isn't it? But I don't know. It's nice, and it's not. And we have a lot of people that come into Corinth, and they come because of the old, and not necessarily because of the new.
Certainly.
And they think it's amazing how we've managed to save the downtown. But it took everybody working together.
Mm-hmm.
And now we've got the old. We used to call it the old South End. It went down, and nobody had been able to bring it back up, but now they've got it go up and going now. So basically the whole town is back to what we might call the old normal.
That's wonderful.
And so it's real good, and we don't stay open on Saturday like we used to. We used to stay open at 9 or 10 o'clock on Saturday night, but I'm afraid the shopping center's got that.
Okay.
But this was a hub. You've got to remember, go back to the years and see how the other towns around us have grown.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes a difference too. It's just they're traveling.
It's so refreshing to visit a town that has uniqueness.
Well, you know what somebody said the other day, I'm trying to think where they were from, Connecticut, I believe. I'm not positive about that. But anyway, he says, it's so nice, somebody stopped and showed me how to go. He was trying to find the interpretive center. And he says, I just couldn't believe they'd take the time to take him and show me. He says, I've never seen him before. He says, I'll never see him again. But they took the time to show me, and they talked about how nice it was. And it is. It's nice. I think probably small towns and small schools might be nice for everybody. It's a slower pace of life.
The people here are amazingly nice and outgoing.
They are real nice people, and not that they're from Mississippi. I just think you will find it throughout the South. Mm-hmm. We go at a slower pace, I think. I don't know how you see it. You come from a different part of the country.
We do, but the friendliness of the people is the first thing we've noticed here. I mean, it's a beautiful place.
And what I think is amazing is almost always they recognize you're from out of town. I think that's unusual. And,
how do they know?
Yeah, how do they know? That's really true. I mean, but they'll know.
Sure.
And I thought that was kind of interesting. When I came back from school, I realized that they'd noticed that.
No, it's been a wonderful experience to meet the people of this town and see the friendliness, and also as you're obviously displaying the desire to bring the downtown area back and make something special.
I think it really worked out as a great idea,
mm-hmm.
regardless of whose idea it was. It's just worked out well. And when you think about history, history is real interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings out a lot there.
And people here are more interested in it than any place I've ever been.
Well, that's interesting to know.
Obviously, you have Shiloh.
Yeah, you got Shiloh, which helped.
Everything else, people are into either talking about or arguing about.
Oh, yes, they got to argue about it,
Right. What do you think the future of Borroum's in downtown is?
That I really can't say. I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you like it, I think that's a good idea. but I never insisted that my children like it. What do you like is what I asked them. Well, one that really surprised me decided to be a constitutional law attorney and later a judge, and I thought for sure they were going to be a doctor. And then my next son decided to go into real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And then my youngest son is the one that helps me at the store, and he has a degree in chemistry, but he never did get a pharmacy degree.
Okay.
And so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. We have grandchildren and great-grandchildren. The grands, we still have some in college, and some of them are in the scientific field and some are not. And it'll be interesting to see.
The family,
we've been real lucky to operate as long as we have.
the family stayed pretty much here in northern Mississippi.
Yes, and I thought that was an oddity. After the Indians put Miss Borroum's scout back on, she refused to go to Texas. And she said it was God's will that they stay in Mississippi. And what's really odd about it is her particular branch of the family has never left Mississippi. We have one that went to the Naval Academy and became an engineer and a pilot, and he lives in Little Rock.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody else lives here in Mississippi. I thought that was kind of funny. She was a very strong-willed person, too.
I'm thinking she must have been.
She was. But it's amazing when you think about it, that how we get to where we are, you know.
Sure.
And I think about the hardships they went through when they first formed this country. I wonder if our young people have any clue as to how much they did without and how hard it was.
I doubt it.
Can't you just see us in a covered wagon and a cow behind, camping out in the open, and depending upon what you could kill to eat? I don't know whether we're that strong enough or not.
No Facebook?
No Facebook, no phone, no radio, no television.
Dead in a day.
You know, when you think about it, you do wonder sometimes if maybe we haven't gotten a little soft.
I suspect those were strong people, but
but then you'll turn around and you'll see some young people that do some amazing things.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It was like a young man here in town the other day. They had a car wreck. I think I'm telling this correct, and he stopped his car when it burst. When that other car burst in flames, and got those people out.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, you know, you got to be a little tough to do that. So maybe we underestimate them.
So you were unusual as a pharmacy student, as a woman. What about as a business person here in Mississippi?
You'll laugh. I got along fine with the men. It was the women I couldn't get along with. I don't say I couldn't get along with, but it wasn't as easy to be accepted by the women as it was the men. The doctors were fine. The other pharmacists were fine. But ironically, I didn't realize the significance of it till I was about my last year in pharmacy school. And I think that's funny because today we made such an issue out of it.
Sure.
And of course, Lord Garrett's sister was our first woman doctor here in the county. And that was in the early 1900s. That's when a doctor, somebody wanted to study medicine, they studied under a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And she later became a missionary and left, but she practiced here a good while. We still got some prescriptions that she wrote.
You have almost a museum over there.
Yeah, it is almost a museum. And, you know, people bring us papers and they want us to put them up, and we do.
Mm-hmm.
And they pleases them, and everybody enjoys looking at them. And sometimes they don't kind of relate to anything, but they like it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
We have paintings that children have done and we put up there. And the children come in and show other children their pictures. It's just a family-oriented store, I think, more than anything else.
And does it, from everyone we've talked to, it's sort of the cultural center of the town.
Well, hopefully.
Business center, but
we just try to fit in the community, and if something's needed, we try to help.
It's a wonderful success story.
We come down at night and fill prescriptions. Our customers have our cell phones, so if they have a problem, well, they know they can get a hold of somebody.
And you
We
still,
may not can solve it, we make them feel better.
and you still work there every day?
Yes, we work there. I'm there from 9 to 5.
Wow.
However, last night I was there from 9 to 7, but I was supposed to be 5, but we didn't make it.
That's quite a chore.
It is, and but as I said again, if you like something that you do, like you gentlemen like what you do, it's different.
It is.
And if you just kind of mediocre in how you feel, most people don't stay with it very long.
Is it the pharmacy or the people you meet that you like the best?
Probably a little of both. I've grown up with most of these people, and I've taught some of their children art. I do paint, and we used to stay open to 7 o'clock, but we had a little problem with a few little, I don't know whether you should say this or not. Anyway, seemed like it'd been wiser to close than to stay open, because we were the only thing open downtown.
Okay.
And so well, I used to teach them, say, from 7 to 8 or 6 to 7, you know, when it was slow. And then we've had Cub Scout dinners and meet down there, had their meetings there. And we had Girl Scouts that had been there, and the Brownies, so it's kind of been a meeting place when that people need a place to go, they had a place to go.
It's a perfect thing to be in a small town, isn't it?
It does make it nicer. But you know, big cities have their advantages too.
Yes, they do.
And but we all kind of seek what we like, I think.
It sounds like you found it.
Well, we're happy with it. Somebody says, what are you going to do when you come back in afterlife? I says, I guess I'll do the same thing all over again.
Run a pharmacy. So, well, you mentioned you work other places, but how long have you worked continuously at Borroum's?
Well, I graduated in 48, so 48 in 2013 is
A long time.
67? No, it'd be 13. What is that?
So you
68, 85, 13.
You probably have
About
seniority.
68 years, somewhere like that. Somebody do the subtracting.
You have seniority then.
I have seniority, I definitely do.
That's excellent.
And seniority always has an advantage. You're going to laugh. I parked out at Kroger the other night, and I was just going to run in and get 3 cans of cat food. So I parked in the fire lane, don't misunderstand me. And but I wasn't watching anything, and I wasn't going to be in there with just a minute. So I ran in there and got the cat food and came back out, and there stood a policeman. He and I were both surprised. He says, well, you weren't in there very long, were you? I says, no. And I says, I won't do it again. So he smiled, and he helped me with my trunk. He said my trunk was a disaster, and it was. But in the city, I guess I would have gotten a ticket.
Probably so.
I don't know. But it's a great life, and I think that's what's nice about the United States. You find so many different types of people and businesses, and everybody kind of operates their own way. And now that's not true of your big organizations, but it is of the small towns, I think.
Small business in a small town.
And too, that's really what made our country great, was the individuality. Or at least that's the way I think about it.
Seems to be working for you.
Yeah, it's worked for me. And, one time, Ed Allen was chief of police, and he came in the store. That's when they first had tear gas. And he was wanting to show the men in the coffee club how the tear gas worked. And he was so excited that we had it, you know. All of a sudden the canister was dropped. And we like to never got where we'd go back in the store. And the funeral parlor that was Mike Peters in, it was uptown, and it came down and tried to help us. Mr. Allen took him a long time before the chief would even talk about it. But things like that, it's things that you remember, and which makes our country.
Sure. Must be beautiful here at Christmas.
It ordinarily is. I don't know what they're going to do about decorations this year. They probably need to fluff them up a bit.
But it is gorgeous.
But it's kind of like Halloween. We have lots of houses that decorate for Halloween, and over on Main Street we had it more or less reminded me of a cemetery. It was really neat the way those young men had fixed it. And we had black cats on our roof. We live in an old Victorian house, and we had those big old black cats that move. And it like scared one young lady to death with the slant eyes, turned around and looked at her. But that makes it nice. I don't know whether they do that in the cities or not. In Jackson, which is probably one I've been to mostly, I didn't see a whole lot, but I may not have been in the right area. But they do a lot of that, and the homes will be decorated, and the homes will be real pretty.
There's beautiful homes in this town.
And they're really nice, and we lost some, but that's just like everything else. You're going to lose some.
Sure.
Some you're going to be able to save. Wish we could have saved the Borroum house, but it wasn't in the cards, so that's the way it was. Theodore Borroum's house is still standing, and it's on Shallow Road. And but the Curley house is still standing, a young house, and the Williams have homes too, I believe. And the old Garrett home is still there. There's lots of pretty homes here.
That's wonderful.
And they're not necessarily antebellum.
Sure.
But they are pretty homes.
Wonderful.
And we have a very active downtown association, and we also have a active garden clubs that help to keep things like that going.
It's beautiful.
And having lived in Corinth all my life, I can't hardly speak for any other town.
This is the only one that matters to us.
Yes, and they do their best, and they're proud of the community. And I think the people are proud of their downtown. It took a lot of work and a lot of ingenuity, but it worked.
Everybody seems proud of this town.
And there was a few little feathers get messed up every once in a while, but they all calmed down.
Wonderful. Camille, that is wonderful. We really appreciate your time.
Well, I hope it helped.
It helped a great
If I
deal.
didn't get my tongue too twisted.
I'm going to turn this off if that's okay.
It's fine.
You understand I've been recording this.
Oh, okay.
With your permission.
Oh, I assume you can correct the errors that are made.